sixth graders, today we're going to take a look at multiplying fractions. So last week we did adding and subtracting fractions, which I do have to say is probably the one that has the most work when we're looking at our operations with fractions, where we had to find that common denominator. Today our focus is looking at multiplying fractions. Multiplying fractions, forget those rules from the other time. We're not worrying about our adding or not worrying about our common denominator. For multiplying fractions, all we need to worry about is multiplying. So we're going to multiply across the top with our numerators, across the bottom with our denominators, and then we'll be able to have our answer after we simplify. So we're going to get started with a couple examples here. We're going to progressively get a little bit harder with our examples as we go. So our first one here is 1/3 times 5/6. When we have this problem, all we're doing, we're multiplying our numerators. We get 5. Our denominators, 18. We need to think, is there any number that goes into both of those to simplify? And there is not, so that is our answer. So multiplying fractions across the top, across the bottom. All right. Now, next one that we're going to take a look at, if we have 2/3 of, you might see this language in your assignment today. When we see that word of, that is the same thing as saying multiply. So if they're asking for 2/3 of 1/12, the same thing as saying 2/3 times 1/12. Now on this one, we could continue doing what we did in the last one, and we could multiply on the top and multiply on the bottom. But when we take a look at this one, we do need to make sure that we simplify. We need to think, what is a number that goes in both 2 and 36? I'm going to try 2. And we get 1/18. Now we could also take a look at this problem in a different way. Any problem that we have to simplify at the end, we also have the ability to do simplifying beforehand. When we simplify our multiplication fractions beforehand, we are looking crossways here. Do 1 and 3, can we simplify those? No. 2 and 12, we can. So we could think, what is a number that goes into both 2 and 12? In this case, we can take 2 out of both, divide by 2, we get 6. Now when we multiply across, we have 1 times 1, and we have 3 times 6, which is going to be that same answer of 1/18. We're just simplifying beforehand here versus at the end this way. You get the same answer. The nice thing about when simplifying beforehand, it does keep you from having numbers that are going to be too large. All right, our next example that we're going to take a look at is if we have a whole number. So here we go, we're going to take a look at 5 times 1/3. Before we do our multiplication, we need to turn that whole number into a fraction as well. To do that, we simply put it over 1. So 5 is the exact same thing as 5/1. Just putting that 1 in the denominator spot to make that a fraction. Now we have 5 times 1 is 5. 1 times 3 is 3. There we have an improper fraction. We can change that to a mixed number by thinking, how many times does 3 go into 5? 1 large time. And then what's left over? There's 2 left over out of our 3 with our denominator. There we go. So when we have our whole number and multiplying by a fraction, now notice you guys, our answer is going to be smaller here because we're multiplying by something that's less than 1. Let's take a look at this one. Let's look at 5 and 1/3 times 3. So now we have a whole number, but in this one, you guys, we also have a mixed number. When we're taking a look at our mixed numbers, what we need to do is we need to turn those to improper fractions first. If we're looking at this problem, to change that to an improper fraction, 5 times 3 plus 1, we get 16/3. Now remember, how do we change this one into a fraction? We're putting over 1, so it's our 3 times 1. Looking here, we can multiply across the top and across the bottom. Now, I see here that crossways, we can simplify this beforehand. I can take 3 out of this and 3 out of this and have 1. Now when we multiply across, I have 16/1. which is the exact same thing as saying 16. Now, if we look back at our normal problem, anytime that we have our mixed numbers, it's a really good idea to do some estimating beforehand. We know that this is about 5, like if we rounded, times 3. So it should be about 15, which our answer, we end up get 16. So we are all set there. Now let's take a look at if we have a mixed number times a mixed number. So here I have 4 1/8 times 5 1/2. Now taking a look at our estimating here, now it's pretty close to 4 times, well, if we round that up, it'd be 5. So our answer should be somewhere around 20. Oh, sorry. My bad, you guys. And that should be 6 because we're rounding up. Our answer should be somewhere around 24. So estimating important that we kind of know about where that answer is going to be. So let's take a look at this one. First thing that we need to do is change these to improper fractions. So 4 times 8 is 32 plus 1. We have 33 over 8. Then I'm going to multiply it by, 5 times 2 plus 1, 11 over 2. All right, now in this case, you guys, if we look crossways, we can't simplify those ones at all. Okay, 2 and 32 or 33 can't be simplified, and 11 and 8 can't be simplified. So here we need to do some multiplication. 33 times 11, I did it on my paper already. 33 times 11 is 363. And then we have our 8 times 2, which is 16. Now, this is where we have some bigger numbers that we do have to do some different computation stuff here. And I do want to show you one thing. So here we have our improper fraction. Now, if we want to change that into a mixed number, and we want to think, how many times does 16 go into 362? I'm going to do my long division right over here. 63, not 362, divided by 16. So looking here, it doesn't go into 3, goes in 2 times. I'm just going to run through my problems here. All right, at 32, I'm going to subtract, bring down my 3. 16 goes into 43, 2 times again. 32, I'm going to subtract, and I get 11. Okay, now when we're taking a look at turning this into a mixed number, this is a great way to think about it. When I did my division, my 363 divided by 16, I find out that my whole number is going to be 22. Now, the fraction here, our remainder, that is our numerator, and our divisor is going to be same as 16 as our denominator. So anytime that you have bigger numbers, if you actually do your long division here, whatever you get for that remainder, that is what your numerator is going to be. So this answer, we get 22 and 11/16. Looking pretty close to our estimate of 24. Not too bad. All right, we're going to do one more example. And this one again is going to be a mixed number mixed number times mixed number. So we have 1 1/8 times 3 1/3. So step 1 is to turn these into improper fractions. So I have 1 times 8 plus 1. Okay, so I have 9 over 8 times our 3 times 3 plus 1, which is going to be 10 over 3. Once we get to this one, this is a great example of showing how we can simplify beforehand. Remember, we're working crossways. So 9 and 3, I know that 3 goes into both those. So I'm going to divide by 3, and that becomes 1. I'm going to divide this by 3, and this becomes 3. Now, the other way, I can also simplify. They're both even. So I know 2 goes into both those. 10 divided by 2, that's becoming 5. 8 divided by 2, that is becoming 4. Now when we multiply, I have a lot smaller numbers that I'm dealing with instead of, 90 and 27. Here, I have 15 across the top. 4 times 1 is 4. A lot more manageable to find our answers here. Now changing to a mixed number, 4 goes into 15 3 times. So that's taking 12 out of there. and ending up with 3 over 4 left over. So when we're multiplying, a couple things to keep in mind. We're multiplying across the top, we're multiplying across the bottom, but then we need to make sure that we're simplifying either at the beginning or at the end. If you have a whole number, so if we have, here, let me just erase this. So if we have just our 5, before we can multiply, we do have to turn it into a fraction. So we need to put it over 1. If we have a mixed number, we need to change it to an improper fraction before we can multiply. But then those same rules apply where we can just go across the top and across the bottom. The other thing I want you to remember, that word of, that's going to be a word that's going to be helping us to signal that, yes, we need to multiply on that. Today's assignment is going to be a little bit different one from our math curriculum. For this, it is an interactive practice one. You should be able to write right on the assignment, and then if need be, you can insert a text box, or you can just use the stylus that they have there, and you can put your answer right onto the document and then submit. Once again, if you guys have any questions at all, please make sure that you are asking so we can make sure we get those answered. All right, have a good one. See you later.